Hi, this is Barry Walsh, your COVID-19 Math 10 teacher online. Today, systems of linear equations, the elimination method with fractions. Now, we did the elimination method last lesson. So today, we're going to do it with fractions. And if you remember a couple of lessons ago, we did the graphing method with fractions, and we're going to apply the same method of getting rid of the fractions. And I know that you'll like that. You get rid of the fractions rather than deal with them. It's a great method. Okay, so let's start with number 1 right here. And we'll worry about the order of them later, but for now, let's just get rid of the fractions. So forget about the second equation now. We have to deal with them individually. So do you remember the steps? Okay, so first we find the lowest common denominator. Then try to remember with me. Second step, multiply the lowest common denominator by every part of the equation. And the third step is to divide to eliminate the fractions. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is multiply by the LCD. And the LCD is 15. And this gets multiplied by 15. And this one as well. Now, if you recall, I did with the first example when we did graphing of this type. For the first problem, I put 15 over 1. Just so that you would know what I'm doing. So I'll do the same thing here again. So after you choose the LCD, you set up your multiplication, and now we're going to multiply. So 15 times 2x is 30x for the numerator, and the denominator is 1 times 3 is 3. Second part of the equation. Now, this turns into negative 15. I didn't have room to squeeze it in there, so just remember if there's a number outside of the bracket and there's a negative sign there, that negative sign now belongs to whatever number you're multiplying by. Negative 15 times 3 is negative 45y. And for the denominator, 1 times 5 is 5. Now for this part, there's no fraction, so you just multiply by the LCD. So it's 15 times 2. And remember when we were doing it the other day, every part of the equation gets multiplied by the LCD. It's not just the fractions. Okay, step 3, divide to eliminate the fractions. 30x divided by 3 is 10x equals negative 45y divided by 5 is negative 9y, and you just bring down the 30. What I'm going to do for now is leave this in the order that it's in until I get the other one done. And after I have the other equation done, then we'll decide what order we can use to solve it. All right, let's look at this equation. What's the LCD? Yes, it's 10. You guys knew that, didn't you? So I'm going to squeeze this in here, and it's going to be a negative 10 because of that negative sign. And then we multiply 7 by 10, and there's a 0 here, and we're going to multiply that by 10. Every part of the equation gets multiplied by the LCD. Now I used the LCD over 1 over here. I'm not going to do that anymore. Just remember that you're multiplying the lowest common denominator by the numerator of the fraction. And try to remember there's a 1 underneath, so you don't multiply the denominator by anything except 1, which we understand we're doing. All right, 10 times 1x is 10x for the numerator, and the denominator is 2. Here, negative 10 times 2 is negative 20 y over 5. 10 times 7 is 70, and 10 times 0 is 0. So we did the first 2 steps, and the last step, divide to eliminate the fractions. 10x divided by 2 is 5x. Minus 20y divided by 5 is minus 4y. Bring down 70. Bring down the 0. So the question is, when you do elimination, what order do you want the equations to be in? Now, it really doesn't matter what order you put them in, but they both have to be in the same order. My favorite order, it doesn't mean that it will be your favorite, but this is the way I like to do it. I like to have the x and the y on the same side of the equal sign and the number on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So that's the way I'm going to do them. So this equation, the first one, 10x. Now if I want the y term to be on the same side of the equal sign as the x, when I move the negative 9y from the right-hand side of the equal sign to the left-hand side of the equal sign, I have to do opposite operation, which means add 9y. Do you see what I did there? I went from the right to the left. When you change sides, you change signs. And equals 30. The 30 is on the right-hand side of the equal sign in this line, and it's on the right-hand side of the equal sign on this line, so it does not change signs. So we did that for the first equation. I'm going to do the same thing for the second equation. So 5x is already on the left-hand side of the equal sign. Minus 4y is on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So what am I going to do with this 70? I'm going to move it over here. So if I move the 70 from the left of the equal sign to the right of the equal sign, it changes to negative 70. And what we have now is the same thing that we did in our last lesson. Just a normal elimination problem. Once you get rid of the fractions, all of a sudden you see daylight and you say, oh, this is awesome, I can do this. So let's look at what we can cancel out here. Remember, elimination, same process, is called the addition method. So if we add 10 and 5, we get 15. That doesn't do us any good. If we add 9y and negative 4y, that doesn't do us any good. And let's see what we have to multiply by. So if we multiply the bottom equation by negative 2, negative 2 times 5 will give me negative 10x on the bottom and 10x on the top. That's what I want. So I decided to work with the x's here, eliminate them first. Okay, so the first equation we don't have to multiply by anything. So I just copied that down here. And underneath we'll write negative 2 times 5x is negative 10x. Negative 2 times negative 4y is plus 8y equals negative 2 times negative 70 is 140. All right, what happens? We are now able to add 10x and negative 10x give you 0x, so we say they are canceled out. 9y plus 8y is 17y equals 170. Looks good. Now, because one of the variables is eliminated, it's a very simple solution to find here. So we just divide by 17, divide by the coefficient of y, and we get y is equal to 10. Now, can you remember how you get x once you find y? Remember? Okay, so what we do is we substitute 10 for y in one of our equations. Now, I'm going to choose not to use one of these equations up here because these equations have fractions in them. Easy to make a mistake. So what I'm going to do is use one of these equations here. If I did everything up here correctly, these equations should be okay. So I'm going to go with the bottom equation, the second one. 5x minus 4y equals negative 70. Y is 10, so I'm going to replace y with 10 equals 70. Does that look okay? So what I did, use my green marker for a second, I brought the 10 over here and I replaced the y with 10. And now we can solve this because one of the variables is now gone. We've replaced it with a number. So 5x minus 40 is equal to 70. Now, I think I made a mistake here. Yes, I did. Look, careless. It's easy to be careless. I do it all the time. So that should be a negative 70, right? Okay. Opposite operation. Negative 40, take it to the other side, positive 40. So 5x equals negative 70 plus 40. 5x is equal to negative 70 plus 40 is negative 30. And my last step is to divide by 5 on both sides. And I'm going to write my answer up here because I'm running out of space at the bottom. X equals negative 6. There we go. What is the intersection point? If we were to graph these, it would be quite a job to graph these because of the fractions, and I think you'd want to do it by elimination. That's how I feel about it. I spelt intersection wrong, but I think you get what I mean. Intersection point is negative 6 for x and 10 for y. So if we look back at this problem that we've just done, what I see is the first line of the question's got fractions in it. It looks intimidating. You're thinking to yourself, oh my, what am I going to do with this? But all you have to do is just follow the steps. 1, find the lowest common denominator. 2, multiply every part of the equation by the lowest common denominator. 3, divide to eliminate the fractions. And once you've done that, you've got a normal elimination problem. The only other thing you have to do is make sure both equations are in the same order. Okay, let's go on to number 2. Now with number 2, both equations are already in the same order. That makes it a little bit easier. You're going to get them when they're in the same order, and you're going to get them when they're in mixed up order. So you have to get used to both. Okay, the first equation, the LCD is 4, so we have to multiply everything by 4. Just like so. And take your time when you're doing this. It's easy to make a careless error. I do it all the time. And I know that you can do it too. Just take your time. Okay, so we're multiplying only the numerators by the LCD. So in this case, we get 4x over 4. Does that sound good? And in this case, we get, in the middle term, we get minus 4y over 2 equals negative 8. Okay, let's divide. 4x divided by 4 is 1x, or x. Negative 4y divided by 2 is negative 2y, and that is equal to negative 8. Now, only a few seconds ago, you had this intimidating looking monstrous equation with the fractions in it. And how quickly it is gone, and you've got something easier to work with. Second equation, what is the common denominator? 10. So we are going to multiply everything, every part of the equation, even the non-fractions, by 10. So 10 times negative 3 is negative 30x. That's supposed to be a 3. And on the bottom we get 2. 10 times 4y is 40y. And for the denominator we get 5. And on the right hand side of the equal sign, 10 times 1 is 10. So those are the first 2 steps. Find the LCD, multiply everything by the LCD. Third step, divide to eliminate the fractions. Negative 30x divided by 2 is negative 15x, plus 40y divided by 5 is 8y equals 10. So what I'm going to do now is put one of them on top of the other one. They're both already in the same order, so I don't have to worry about that. So here we go. 1x minus 2y equals negative 8. And negative 15x plus 8y equals 10. One of the things that I do as well is I make sure that I'm copying down this line to this line correctly. That's another easy mistake to make, and then from that point on you're wrong and you wonder, where the heck did I go wrong? Okay. So we're all set. I would say the easiest thing to do here is to eliminate the y's. Well, first let's add them up and see. 1 and negative 15, they don't cancel. Negative 2 and 8, they don't cancel. So we have to multiply to set up a canceling situation. Now, we could multiply the top equation by 15, but I don't. If I can multiply by a smaller number, I'm going to do it. So look over here at the y's. If I multiply the top equation by 4 and eliminate the y's, then I don't have to multiply it by 15. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So 4 times 1x is 4x. 4 times negative 2y is negative 8y. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. We don't have to multiply this equation by anything. Just bring it down. Plus 8y is equal to 10. Does that look okay? So what we're going to do now is add. If you add negative 8y and positive 8y, you get 0y. They cancel. If you add 4 and negative 15, you get negative 11, and the letter is x, equals, on the right-hand side, negative 32 plus 10 is negative 22. All we have to do now is divide by the coefficient of x, and if it's a negative 11x, then you divide by a negative 11. Negative 11. So we're dividing by negative 11 both sides. So if we divide this, we get x, or 1x, and that is equal to 2. So our x value of the intersection point is 2. Okay, so now we're going to substitute two for x in one of the equations. I can squeeze that in there. I think you know what I mean. So once again, I'm not going to choose one of these equations up here with the fractions. If I was careful up here, then these equations down here are equivalent equations. So I'm going to go with this one. Looks easy to deal with. 1x minus 2y equals negative 8. And what we're going to do, so we're going to take this 2 and put it in here for x. So instead of 1 times x, we have 1 times 2 minus 2y is equal to negative 8. 1 times 2 is 2 minus 2y equals negative 8. Now we have to do opposite operation again. We've got to get y by itself on the left-hand side. So this 2 has to come over here. So opposite operation, plus 2 minus 2. So when we move the 2 across the equal sign, minus 2 it becomes. Negative 8 subtract 2 is negative 10. That look okay? And then negative 2y equals negative 10. Divide by the coefficient of y. So we're dividing by negative 2. Y is equal to 5. What is the intersection point? If you were to graph these, the intersection point would be 2, 5. So, those are two examples of elimination with fractions. Once you get rid of the fractions, it's just like a straightforward elimination problem that we did last lesson. Now, I have some practice questions for you. I recommend that you do them. It's important. I always say this, but it's so important for you guys to practice. Now, I didn't put 10 questions here. I put 6. I put the answers not in order. And if you can work through these and get them right, and I know that you may make a mistake or two, that's fine. Making mistakes is an important part of learning. I make them all the time. That's the end of today's lesson. Thank you very, very much for watching. Have a great day.